Hey, what's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to another episode of the Dreamerspro Daily Recap, where we give you a recap of all of the hot topics that we covered that day. You can catch them in their long format and also catch it fully streaming for free on Apple Podcasts. Right, so this week we decided to take off, right? We didn't produce any content. We were just relaxing. The week prior to us going on break, there wasn't really much going on in the sports world. And just as it would be, the week we decided to go off is when some interesting things start happening, right? And one of those things were centered on some comments that Anthony Edwards had to make, I believe when he was speaking to the Wall Street Journal, if I'm not mistaken. And Anthony Edwards said the following. We want to put it up for you on the screen. He said, "They say it was tougher back then than it is now. But I don't think anybody had skill back then. Jordan was the only one that really has skill. So that's why when they saw Kobe Bryant, they're like, oh my God. But now everyone has skill." So those were the comments that came out about Anthony Edwards about 5 days ago, right? And ever since he put out those comments, everyone and their grandmother have basically been reacting to what he had to say. And one of those people that reacted to it was none other than Lakers legend Magic Johnson. So apparently Stephen A. Smith was at a conference or some forum, something he was hosting. I don't know what the event was. And on stage with him, he was there talking to Magic Johnson. And they were talking about things like Kobe Bryant, the GOAT conversation, and a plethora of other things. But then it got to the point where Stephen A. Smith asked him to react to the comments that Anthony Edwards had to make about players from his era. And when it came time for Magic Johnson to talk, man, he basically flamed Anthony Edwards and just basically sunned him like, yo, son, I don't even be responding to people. Forget about this on my level. That people that don't even have a single credential to their name to make it worthy for me to even feel like I need to respond to them. But before we even get into what Magic Johnson had to say, today's video is brought to you by our sponsor, Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. For example, I am super excited about the upcoming MLB games. With Game Time tickets, I can easily pick the best tickets for me. I love that I can choose between different deals. I have the option to select the cheaper deal, the best option deal, or my favorite, the flash deal. The flash deal gives me the option to find discounts that I can only find on Game Time. Once I select the ticket I want, I can view my seat. And it's not just restricted to baseball. I can also look for the best ticket deals for other sports like football, the NBA, concerts, comedy, or other theater shows. Included in my purchase, I also have a 24-hour return guarantee, a lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. And remember, whenever you support this sponsor, you're supporting this channel. Thank you. So what we'd like to do now is like to play exactly what Magic Johnson had to say in response to Anthony Edwards, and then we're going to come back and really get into this show. Take a listen to what Magic Johnson had to say here.
Anthony Edwards just said the other day that there really wasn't any skilled players in the NBA back in the day outside of Michael Jordan. That's what he said. Your response to that, Irvin Magic Johnson?
Well, I don't never respond to a guy that's never won a championship. There's not nothing to really say. He didn't win a college championship. I don't know if he even won a high school championship.
So you heard what Magic Johnson had to say there, right? That's what he had to say. Before I even get into my thoughts, I want to read some of the things that people were saying about Magic Johnson's response to Anthony Edwards. And I want to read from ESPN/NBA on ESPN Instagram page. They put up a post. I want to read some of the comments. One person said, Ant don't have, you know what, so who's really winning? Another person says, to say MJ was the only player with skill is crazy, though. Another person said, what is it? I'd have 5 rings, too, if Kareem carried me. Another person said, I don't respond, and he responded. Another person said, Magic, Bird, Isaiah, Malone, Worthy, Clyde, Hakeem, and Kareem, guess they were all truck drivers. Another person said, Magic, Cook, Ant, not gonna lie. Another person said, Magic getting offended is exactly the problem with old heads. Magic is not the type of player Ant was talking about. He was talking about the other 95% of the NBA. 90s teams had 1 to 0 superstars, and the best championship teams had 2 to 3. In today's NBA, just to sniff the playoffs, you need 2 or 3 of those type of players. And one person said Magic Johnson equals a more popular Ben Simmons, right? So that's what people were saying in response to Magic's comments. What are my thoughts on this? I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I think a lot of people are going to disagree with me. Probably there are going to be people that disagree with me, but I don't care. What are my thoughts on this? Going through those comments, here's what happened. There were people that read what Magic Johnson said, and they knew that he was 100% right in what he was saying. Like, yo, son, you haven't accomplished anything to even be talking, right? And they tried to basically say Magic's credentials shouldn't play a part in him and whether or not he decides to respond to Anthony Edwards or not, right? There were people that were saying that. There were also other people using Magic's comments as, oh, you know, he's just hiding behind his resume. Things like that. So since they knew that that's what he was doing, or that's what they felt like he was doing, they now said, oh, that's all he's doing. So, and is justified in what he's saying. There are 2 things to pay attention to. Number 1, Magic Johnson's resume allows his words to carry more weight than Anthony Edwards. That's the reality, and he just pointed that out. Number 2, Anthony Edwards' comments were wrong-headed. Those are the 2 things here that we need to address. Magic was right because he's right in general. And number 2, Magic is also right to say, but I don't respond to people like this that haven't accomplished a damn thing in their careers for me to be sitting up here and reducing myself down to the level to sit up here and respond to them. Let's just take a quick snapshot at what Anthony Edwards has done in his NBA career thus far. Anthony Edwards came into the NBA. What year was he drafted? He was drafted in 2020. In those years, 4 years or whatever, he's made 2 All-Star teams. He's made an All-NBA second team, an All-NBA rookie first team in 4 years. What does Magic Johnson did? Now, obviously, we're looking at the totality of his career, but a lot of what he did also occurred from the very beginning of his NBA, his NBA career. He basically was drafted in 1979 to the Lakers, and in his career, he's a 5-time champion, 3 times Finals MVP. He was the most valuable player in the NBA. He won that 3 times. He was a 12-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star Game MVP, 9-time All-First Team player, 1-time second. So he's a 10-time All NBA player. He led the league in assists 4 times. He led the league in steals 2 times, and he was part of the 50th team, the anniversary 50th team, and he's part of the 75th team as well. And he did a lot of stuff, outside of the NBA as well, right? College and all of that. So Magic Johnson has a resume, and it's because of his resume that people listen to him. That's the part that we have to address. And I think that that's the part that's going to eat up people that want to come to the defense of Anthony Edwards, even if it's former NBA players talking sports, talking basketball, right? They're going to want to say, well, what Anthony Edwards said is valid, regardless of his accomplishments. You can't take away Magic Johnson's accomplishments, because if Magic Johnson was just some two-time All-Star sitting somewhere talking, would people listen to him? Yes. But would they pay attention to him the way that they do, given the fact that he's Magic Johnson? Of course not. So his resume, his accomplishments carry weight. And Magic is looking at it from the standpoint of, I'm Magic Johnson. This is Anthony Edwards. Why would I stoop to the level of Anthony Edwards to respond to him? And this is not the first time this has happened. A person that used to be very, very popular for doing this was Jay-Z. At one point, Jay-Z was the biggest rapper in the game. And Jay-Z believed it to be beneath him to go at rappers or say their names if they weren't on his level. There was even a bar when he put in the song, I think Takeover, when he went at Mobb Deep, and he was like, y'all only get half a bar. F y'all, you know what? That's what he said to Mobb Deep. Now, Nas, he put out an entire song about him because he viewed him as an equal to a certain extent. But for him to be responding to Anthony Edwards, he believes that it's beneath him. From an accomplishment standpoint, it is. From an accomplishment standpoint, it is. Now, does that hurt some people's feelings? Absolutely. But that's life. Get your weight up. Get your weight up. You're not going to be able to be somebody that's worth $10 million walking into a room trying to talk business with people that are worth $500 million. They're not going to take you seriously. They're not going to take you seriously. And if it hurts your feelings, get your money up. Get your money up. That's the first part. The second part is this. Anthony Edwards' comments were asked backwards. I had a back and forth with Gilbert Arenas via text, and Gilbert Arenas was trying to qualify and try to intellectualize what he was saying. I'm like, no. He was like, well, he's only talking about position. I'm like, but he never said anything about position. You're saying about position. He said in Jordan's era, he didn't talk about no guards. And it's not implied that he's talking about guards. He said his era. Right? He's talking about his era. And to say that, it just says that you don't know anything about your sport. And that's sad. You don't even know anything about your own industry. It's embarrassing. It's your industry. I'm not an NBA player. Anthony Edwards is. You're supposed to at least have some knowledge of your industry. And then it begins to make me think, if you don't know anything that occurred in the NBA prior to you getting there, then how are you really going to expand your game over time? How are you going to gain inspiration from players? Kobe Bryant knew a lot about that. He was a student, literally a student. That's why he could draw from people's games like Hakeem Olajuwon, Jerry West, and all of these guys that came before him. You have to have an overall awareness for you to be able, because if you know more about the game and the players that it's produced, the great players it's produced, you can add more to your repertoire. I've heard Kobe Bryant talk about Alex English. That's how you really expand your game, by expanding your knowledge on the game. But apparently, Anthony Edwards has zero knowledge. And people are butthurt in the comments are, well, he's going to throw out his Yeah. If we make content about Shannon Sharpe, I don't expect Shannon Sharpe to respond to me. He's in a totally different stratosphere. I don't expect him to. Because in Shannon's mind, he's like, I'm shooting down. I'm shooting down. Now, as human beings, that's a different thing. But in this content creating space, he's shooting down. And he is. He is. So if that bothers you, tough. That's life. That's life. There's something that I want to get off my chest. As you guys know, there's been this movement of NBA players and NBA fans trying to disrespect players from the past, right? And it's becoming more commonplace. The latest example of this were the crazy comments that Anthony Edwards made, where he basically came out there and said that, look, they say it was tougher back then. He said the only player that had skill in the past was Michael Jordan. And he goes, the reason why, and then when they saw Kobe, that's why he said, and that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, wow. But he goes, now everybody today has skill. Anthony Edwards is being flame broiled all over the internet for those ridiculous, ignorant comments. But the question then becomes, when did all of this start? What was the genesis of all of this? So I began to sit back and think, and as I was doing research for the various shows today, I began to think, I'm like, when did all of this start? And then a name came to my mind. And who was that name? JJ Redick. As you guys know, JJ Redick is now currently the new head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. But before he took the position, JJ Redick was a podcaster and an NBA analyst that worked on ESPN. And he would go there weekly to go there and talk basketball. And initially when JJ got the job, we produced the show expressing our excitement for JJ, and we even wondered, and we put the question in the title, the question and title of the video. We were like, is JJ Redick going to bring a breath of fresh air to sports media with him joining ESPN? And it turns out that he brought some air, but it wasn't fresh. It was some stinking smelling air of him basically going on television and twerking it up every single day and knocking over people's drinks and getting into arguments with people like Chris Mad Dog Russo, right? And there was a particular exchange that took place on ESPN First Take that I personally believe that kick-started this rampant disrespect we see towards players like Michael Jordan and his era. And that exchange had to do with some comments that JJ Redick made about Bob Cousy and players of the past, and that's what really kicked off this entire thing. So for those of you who don't remember what JJ Redick had to say then, want to play for you now as a quick refresher. It's a short clip, and then want to come back and really get into this. Take a listen to JJ Redick there.
He lost that series when he was on the Clippers. Missed 4 free. Was it 2 or 4 free throws?
No. It was. I was on the team. It was
he missed
a
some
turnover.
Free throws.
He fouled Russell Westbrook, and then he turned it over on the last play.
Didn't he miss some 2 free throws?
There was no free throws involved.
How about last year in one of the games against Milwaukee? Didn't he have 5 points in Game 5 against the Bucks and was awful in a game?
Okay.
If you are an NBA Hall of Famer.
What about the entire Lakers series where he couldn't shoot a basketball? Physically couldn't raise his shoulder and arm above his head, and he gutted it out and beat the Lakers.
I give him, he did the good
so
job.
does he get credit for that?
We are putting him on this level of the all-time greats. When you put him on the level of the all-time greats, you can't have these kind of games.
Is he an all-time great, JJ?
You can't put
he's absolutely an all-time
point guard.
He's an all-time great point guard.
Without question.
If he wins a championship, he's in the conversation for the greatest point guard ever. I'm not saying he's the
no, he's not. The greatest point guard. He's not Bob Cousy. He's not Bob Cousy.
Bob Cousy couldn't dribble with his left hand.
Bob Cousy changed the game. Chris Paul didn't change the game.
Bob Cousy won championships when there were 8 teams in the NBA and you had to win 2 playoff series.
Guys,
Let's celebrate Bob Cousy in his era, but you can't compare pre-1980 with
yes, you can.
With the modern NBA.
Can.
No, you cannot. No, you cannot.
Well, how about Weston Oscar? Can you compare Cousy with Weston Oscar?
The great players could play in any era. There's no doubt about that.
Cousy was first team All-NBA when Weston Oscar were playing. And he was first team All-NBA. That's against Weston Oscar.
Well,
first team All-NBA. Has Paul ever been first team All-NBA?
Did Bob Cousy ever shoot over 40% from the field in his career?
Well, we understand that.
Did he ever shoot over 40%?
Probably 39, 40%. Different kind of game.
Not once.
Not
once.
That's fair. He also had 29 assists in an NBA game.
Oh, well, he was being guarded by plumbers and firemen.
So you heard what JJ Redick had to say there, right? That basically Bob Cousy was playing against a bunch of firemen and plumbers. Those comments that he made caused NBA legends to come out and absolutely destroy JJ Redick. And one of the first voices that came out was Jerry West, and he absolutely leaned into his ass. So for those of you who didn't hear what Jerry West had to say, want to play what he had to say for you now, and then want to come back and continue on. Take a listen to Jerry West responding to the crazy comments of JJ Redick. Take a listen to that there.
JJ Redick, a current player who just recently retired, said that Bob Cousy played against firemen and plumbers, and Bob came on and wasn't too pleased. And, you played in that era, and those guys set the table for us to be where we are today. And I was just interested in your thoughts on comments like that about your generation and the generations that paved the way.
Well, obviously the game is completely different. The athletes are completely different. And I know JJ just a little bit. He's a very smart kid and everything. Look, tell me what his career looked like. What did he do that determined games? He averaged 12 points a game in the league. Somewhere along the way, numbers count. At that point in time, the players aren't what they used to be. JJ certainly wasn't going to guard the elite players. And so you can nitpick anyone. And I'm not, the only reason I'm talking about him is because he was not an elite player, but he was a very good player. But he had a place on the team because of his ability to shoot the ball. But those players at that era, and again, that was when I started to see the difference in athleticism. My era, I was an athlete way before my time. I had a huge vertical. Probably no one in the league was much faster than me. And certainly the competitive part of it, I would put myself among any player that played the game. Today also, winning is all that matters. That's what drove me. And I subtly got better every year. We didn't have the facilities to get better. We had to work in the summers to support our family. But JJ should be very thankful that he's made as much money as he's made. And Bob Cousy, who I played against a couple of years, not very long, I just think it's very disrespectful myself.
So you heard what Jerry West had to say in response to JJ Redick there, but it didn't stop there. Not only was he disrespecting players from the past, he was also disrespecting the way the game was played, and in the midst of that, or in the process of that, also disrespecting or insulting our intelligence by basically saying that players that played in the 80s and the 90s, there wasn't really any physicality. There was no physicality. And that he studied a lot of video footage that proves that Larry Bird and Michael Jordan and all of these guys did not play in a physical era. For those of you sitting there saying, wait, JJ Redick actually said that the 80s and the 90s weren't physical? Yes, he did. For those of you who don't believe me, take a listen to this man here.
I am old school, as we all know. JJ, perfect. But, Bird shot plenty of threes. And they had Parrish and McHale. Bird shot plenty of threes. The best. And Bird is one of the great shooters in the history of the sport. Not even close.
Bird shot threes. He never was a volume shooter from three.
No, I know that, but he was a great three-point shooter. He was not good. He was great. He's one of the top 5 three-point shooters of all time. That's how good Bird is. Oh, yes. Won three-point shooting contests. He was phenomenal. Bird's a great shooter.
Wait a minute,
and Bird didn't shoot.
Bird is absolutely one of the greatest shooters ever, but he's not one of the top 5 3-point, top 3, whatever you just said.
Did you see the three-point shooting that he put on, those clinics that he put on at the All-Star game?
Again,
did you watch?
Doggy, it's just math. It's attempts, it's makes, and it's percentage. And there's no way you could ever argue Larry Bird is a top 3 3-point shooter of all time. You can't make that argument.
You're basing it on math. You're basing it on math and a time of when he played. I'm basing it on just shooting. Bird is a unbelievable.
Again, we had this discussion the other day. About James Naismith. James Naismith invented the game. You were rewarded for putting the ball in the basket. There's plenty of people that have shot more, made more, and guess what? Made more at a higher percentage than Larry Bird from 3. I'm not saying Larry Bird is not one of the greatest shooters ever. He's not one of the greatest three-point shooters ever.
Absolutely.
You cannot make that argument.
Yes, I'm sorry. Because the 80s is so much different. There's physicality, the way they guarded people. You couldn't.
Can we get off
I've been trying to make a point.
Seriously,
I've been trying to make a point for you, Doggy.
Come on, man.
Well,
I've been trying to make a point. Hold on, guys.
Physicality, Jay. I mean, you don't think that counts?
You know what? You and I are going to sit down. We're going to sit there and we're going to watch finals games from the 1980s.
But Jay, here's the difference.
I'm going to show you what physical basketball is versus physical fouling.
You're watching them on YouTube. I saw the games. I watched the games at the time. I watched all these games. You didn't watch. You weren't alive when these games were being played. Did you see Bird play against the Lakers in '84? Did you see Bird against the Rockets in '86? Were you at courtside watching these games? No. You got to watch the games at the time. Okay. Watching them on YouTube 40 years later is not the same at the moment.
So
watching a
let me ask you a question then. When I watch, let's say Steph Curry, for example.
Right.
When I watch Steph Curry off the ball in a playoff game.
Oh, he's great.
Getting grabbed and held by Marcus Smart. They're attached to him at all times.
Right.
Then when I watch Larry Bird come off a pin down and no one's within 5 feet of him and they're shooting the gap, you're telling me one is more physical than the other?
So you heard what JJ had to say there. Those comments that he made caused NBA legend Dominique Wilkins to publicly respond to him and call him stupid for what he was saying. For those of you who didn't hear what Dominique had to say, take a listen to him here.
Was a debate on ESPN with a former player in JJ Redick just recently, and they were debating Bird and Curry. And one of the things they said is that Redick said is that Curry has faced more physicality. We called him out on.
Let me say something.
Yeah.
First of all, Redick don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm gonna
concur.
say it right.
I agree.
He don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm like, what basketball was you watching? To say something as idiotic as that is ridiculous. The physicality that was a part of the league. Hey, look. When you can put your hand on a guy's hip and make him go a certain way, if you can put that elbow in his chest to slow him up, which we call slowing a guy up when you coming down the lane, so how many guys can deal with that type of pressure? And for JJ Redick, who've played this game, I'm very disappointed that he has said something so stupid. This is the thing I'm having a problem with. Bird, who's a big guy, who got bumped all the time. We played around the basket more than guards played around the basket. So I don't understand the logic for him saying that. Yeah. When clearly those big guys, even to the big guys today, they get touched a little bit more than little guys because they're around the basket. So it just don't make sense when – this is the thing I hate the most. We had our time. It was a great time. It's their time now.
Yes.
But don't crap on us to prove your point.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense and it's not valid.
Yeah.
But the same thing they look at Sam and myself. Oh, the old guys hating.
No,
hating on what? I don't hate on these guys.
You're responding right now.
Yeah.
You're not.
I don't hate on these guys. These
responding.
guys are great. I just don't like to disrespect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to say that about Larry Bird, it was less physical. Is he stupid?
Back MVP.
It's just a stupid comment to make. I mean, it ain't got nothing to do with Steph Curry or Larry.
Yeah.
It's the content.
Exactly. We just broke down the end result.
It doesn't make sense. And he should know better than that.
Yeah.
And I don't care what he feel about me, what his response might be. But when I hear that, and I'm like, you really don't know, do you?
You heard what Dominique Wilkins had to say, right? This is an NBA top 75 guy saying that, because there were people that heard what JJ Redick had to say and said, well, he's a former NBA player, and what do you know? You didn't play in the NBA. You see, a lot of crazy fans like to hide their crazy views behind the fact that he's an NBA player. And then what happens is when an NBA player with rank, a legend, comes out there and calls out that nonsense, you can't find these people anymore. And that's essentially what happened. Now, if you guys remember, he made some comments about plumbers and firemen and all of that, and talking about they were playing against plumbers and firemen. Well, it turns out there was a conversation that took place between Charles Barkley, who's another top 50 player, top 75 guy, and Stephen A. Smith. And they were talking about the current state of affairs in the NBA today. And in the midst of that, Charles Barkley himself decided to take a shot at this era, talking about all they do is have they giving out a bunch of huge contracts to a bunch of firemen and plumbers, because they're giving money to everybody in the NBA today, it seems, whether you can play or not. For those of you who didn't hear Charles Barkley responding to JJ Redick's comments, take a listen to Chuck here.
Because I challenge you on this. I get your point, and you're right for the most part. What I would say to you is this. I think what's changed is when a player goes to the negotiating table and you looking for $200, $300 million deals, you saying, I'm that dude. I'm that dude that can take you there. This is why I deserve this money. And so as a result of that, people are going to look at that and say, okay, if this is the investment that we need to make in you in order to get you to wear this uniform, there's a stipulation that comes with that, which I think is fair in that regard. When you go into the negotiating table and you say you're the man.
Well, first of all, that's not even fair, because we're paying bombs today, Stephen A., and you know it.
Yeah, you got me there.
Listen,
you got me there.
And I don't want to offend anybody, but we're paying janitors, we're paying plumbers. we're just giving $200 or $300 million out like candy, man. I mean, and listen, and I'm not mad. You get what you deserve, whatever they pay you. I just hope you appreciate that. You know what? I'm the luckiest dude in the world. I was born at the right time. But man, it has nothing to do with the money anymore. We're paying everybody in the NBA.
That's fair.
So you heard what he had to say, right? You heard what he had to say. What are my thoughts on all of this? Look, I believe JJ is the one that started this. I believe he's the one that gave confidence to these people that think that they're discrediting. There was even a point where people were making videos of, oh, Michael Jordan can't dribble with his left. He can't even go left. Just imagine. There were people actually saying that Michael Jordan cannot dribble with his left hand. And they thought they were actually saying something until people started pulling up footage of players playing today. And they were like, oops. There's a lot of low IQ basketball that takes place in the NBA today. Oops. We need to figure out a way to delete that. I believe JJ is the reason all of this kicked off. I believe that he is the catalyst for the disrespect that we see towards players from the past today. I believe he's the reason. And now what we're seeing is more NBA players going out there and saying crazy stuff. That's what's happening, because I think that these guys have figured out the only way for me to endear myself with the younger audience is to trash players from the past. So a lot of these guys will sell their soul. A lot of them will go out there and stand flat-footed in front of a microphone and spew all kind of nonsense and grift to this younger audience if it means that they're going to be able to make some damn money. That's what's happening. So if you want to know who the person is to blame for all this, blame JJ Redick. Blame him. And what I think needs to happen is we need to have more legends calling out some of the players today that are saying these crazy things and really put them in their place. That's the first thing. The second thing I've noticed is this. The people that are discrediting the past are players that are not even accomplished. I've noticed that. Players that are talking, you have yet to hear one top 75 or one top 50 player come out there and endorse any of these comments. You've yet to hear it. It's just one-time all-star. I played 10 years. I played 12 years. I was a 10th pick, 15th pick. It's these guys. You never hear any top-of-the-shelf talent come out there and say some of the nonsense that these guys were saying. And man, this makes me miss people like Kobe Bryant. Can you imagine if Kobe Bryant was alive today and they put a microphone in front of him and they asked him these questions to respond to some of the idiotic comments that these guys are making? He would make these guys look like fools. I'm going to say something and I mean it. When Kobe died, the brains of the NBA went. What do I mean by that? Kobe was one of the smartest guys to play basketball. And with his passing, we got a lot of stupid guys that play basketball that are talking sports. I'm sorry to say it. Not only was Kobe better than these dudes, he was smarter than these dudes. In real life, he was more articulate than them. He could reason better than them. He was more of a global ambassador, personality than them, global citizen than them. So when he spoke, Kobe could appeal to any NBA fan anywhere in the world, whether or not you're in the United States or in some other country around the world. So when Kobe left, the intellect left as well. Because Kobe, when we talk about people talking basketball at an elite level, they can speak it at an intellectual level. He was at the peak. And in the absence of Kobe, we have all of these morons talking basketball. I mean what I'm saying. Kobe was a smarter person than all of these dudes, including your beloved JJ Redick. Including him, because maybe some of you think, well, he speaks so well, so maybe no. Kobe was smarter than JJ Redick. Let's not even get that twisted. He was a smarter person, and the evidence was his life and the things that he was doing. And that's also the problem. We don't have any smart players pushing back on this nonsense. It's just one ignorant comment after the other. I mean that. I sincerely mean that. There were levels. Kobe was at a different level than these dudes. Playing the game, talking the game, teaching the game. These are my thoughts. Whoever gets offended, be offended. I meant 100% of what I just said. These are my thoughts. Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comments and we catch you guys on the next show. Peace.